Hi, my name is Bob Greenyer and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So welcome this Sunday 16th of March 2025 when we say happy birthday, happy 80th birthday to Dr. Alexander Georgievich Parkhomov. So a good friend of mine, and he's reached this Jubilee year, and it's a wonderful thing. He did have a stroke last year and he recovered from that, which is great. And he is still working extremely hard to bring us understanding. And I see that we have one Philip Power in the house that worked with me, did some incredible programming to bring the Parkhomov reaction tables to the open community at fuzzviz.org. You can link from there, or nanosoft.co.nz. Now, we're just going to hear three presentations. Parkhomov is just going to talk a little bit about his history. It's actually, his birthday was on the 31st of January, but it was celebrated in the Russian community with my presence there and a couple of Ukrainians and so forth on Wednesday of this past week. And there were many really good presentations, and I've taken two already and done my best to do an AI audio translation, although there is some problems with that, and I'll try and point those out afterwards and we'll discuss it. And there is Parkhomov talking a little potted history of his own life, and actually that hasn't done too bad a translation. So, first off, how is everyone? Can you hear me? It would be useful if you could let me know. And the two presentations I will show you are absolutely mind-blowing. The first shows that Anatoly Klimov, you can see the history of a couple of different claimants out in the field, the genesis from his work, but also that he is taking very, very seriously certain players in the world and how close they are to delivering this energy technology for the masses. And the other one is Dmitry Baranov. And whilst the videos are playing in the background, I'm actually going to finish dropping a couple of slides in there. So hopefully that will all be done by the time the other two speakers have finished speaking. And he actually will be showing the world's largest bubble chamber. And this work, I think, was conducted 45 years ago. And I think you'll agree with me when you see it. I wonder if we'll ever see such incredible experimentation done again. But the implications of what he says are that neutrinos are real. They are a real thing. And certainly the experiment would point in that direction. So if you'll just bear with me. Hi Artifact, hi John Weir, hi DIY Projects with Chauxis, hi Contraption Athena Mac, Joseph Collar, Mr. Gate Mode, hi Gordon Doherty again, MF Lauder, Matthew Reynolds, Ken Pratt, John Coombs, Mika Avila is in the house. Hi, Christy White, Widow Winter. That's a good one there. Rickard Berendsen. Hi. Hi, TK Mills. Hi, Tammy. Hi, Martin Ansel. Okay, right. So I think I'm a bit hot on the audio. It's clipping a little bit, so I'll turn that down. All right. So first video up is the good doctor himself, and he is going to give you a little potted history of his life. Like I say, this is AI translated. It's not perfect. It kind of is in his own voice, but in English and his own pacing, albeit a couple of delays. And I'll fire away with that now. So I will see you on the other side.
Well, I won't be putting up any presentation. Better look at my personality. Yes, I'm not as handsome, of course, as I was in my youth, but still. So, well, thank you for the kind words about me. But we also have another birthday person. Anatoly Ivanovich Klimov recently turned 75 years old. Let's congratulate him. He is, I would say, an outstanding scientist in the field of LENR, in the field of plasma research, and lately he has significant achievements in these areas. Ahem. Well, the creation of high-efficiency LENR reactors, and let us wish him good health. And on this basis, that he will have even more, so to speak, significant achievements. So, well, I have already turned 80, and there's another anniversary. Soon it will be 60 years of my scientific career, which began when I was a senior student at the MEFI. In fact, I was fascinated by various experiments, amateur radio and chemistry experiments, back in my school years. Even then, a small home laboratory emerged, which still exists to this day. After graduating from the Moscow Engineering Physics Institute, I continued working at this renowned institute, mastering the IRT 2000 reactor, working on many other nuclear physics installations. Defended a candidate dissertation. The main topic was studying the interaction of different types of radiation with matter. Where did I work after MEFI? But what's more important is not where I received a salary, but where I didn't earn one, in scientific and technical societies, in various seminars and conferences, and in the home laboratory. Parapsychology, there was such a stage. Active work in this direction began when Professor Georgy Konstantinovich Kurtovoy invited me to participate in researching the effects of interactions between people considered to be psychics and an electric fish, the low elephant nose fish. Yuri Konstantinovich had long been interested in parapsychology and had connections in the All-Union Scientific and Technical Society. There was a rather powerful organization in the Union designed to stimulate and control scientific and technical creativity. Unlike the Academy of Sciences, this organization had a positive attitude towards parapsychology. There was even a special laboratory located in the house on Furman Lane. There is no opportunity here to talk about the experiments I participated in and what the results were. Part of this was covered by Lyudmila Borisovna and Andrei Vladimirovich. You can read about this and much more in the book Cosmos, Earth, Man, New Facets of Science. Lyudmila Borisovna, well, said that I stopped engaging in parapsychology because I became convinced that these phenomena exist, and it's kind of no longer interesting. Actually, I started all these experiments hoping to uncover some physical lessons of this phenomena. I didn't find anything like that. I did not find it and felt my powerlessness to discover anything like that. So I switched to research with a tangible physical nature. Well, yes. Andrei Vladimirovich said that I had some kind of concept, a neutrino concept of these parapsychological phenomena. There was nothing like that. Of course, I looked at these phenomena from this perspective, from the neutrino perspective, but nothing like that, and indicated that it was really neutrinos. I saw nothing like that. And I have no publications claiming that parapsychology is somehow connected to neutrinos. So, well, let's move on. I'd like to note the following. At the time, I organized a laboratory in the basement of a house on Planet Naya Street, in a space belonging to the Radio Engineering, Electronics, and Communications Scientific and Technical Society, named after Papanin. This is not far from Peshanaya Street, where Anatoly Fedorovich Akatrin's laboratory was located. I have visited his laboratory, and even participated in some experiments. At the same time, I met Nikolai Nikolaevich Sachivanov, a geologist and experienced dowser and organizer of seminars and conferences on dowsing. I even was a member of the dowsing commission at the Popov Scientific and Technical Society. Although I myself did not reach the heights in this art, I was quite well informed about the features of this amazing phenomenon. Based on this knowledge, I put forward a hypothesis about the nature of this phenomenon. The accumulated empirical patterns are remarkably well explained if we assume that the agent associated with this phenomenon has a wavelength of about 1 millimeter and the receiver is the human spine. The spine is a periodic structure that can be considered as an antenna with a multi-lobe directional pattern. At that time, I invented an interesting device, a narrow gap spark chamber with recording on film. Such an unusual two-dimensional Geiger counter allows for obtaining a spatial distribution of radiation intensity in the form of spots on a photoemulsion. Experimenting with this device, I discovered that if a periodic structure is placed nearby, for example, a stack of glass or metal plates with air gaps, then a periodicity appears in the distribution of the spots, which can be interpreted as the diffraction of some radiation with a wavelength of 1 millimeter or less. Electromagnetic radiation or ionizing radiation were not suitable for this role. It was suggested that these were cosmic neutrinos of ultra-low energies. This assumption was supported by publications of reputable physicists, stating that the mysterious dark matter known to exist for 50 years consists of neutrinos and antineutrinos of very low energies that have non-zero mass. Knowing the particle's mass and speed, one can determine the de Broglie wavelength. In terms of order of magnitude, it turned out to be exactly the right size, within the micron range from a micron to a millimeter. At this time, I was enrolled in the radio faculty of MAI, but mainly worked in a laboratory on planet Naya Street. The management became interested in what I was doing there. I had to report. Contrary to expectations, the management took an interest in this exotic research and informed the higher authorities. As a result, I was summoned to report not just anywhere, but to the Military Industrial Commission, located in a building on the Kremlin grounds. Ideas about possible practical applications of neutrino electronic energies were listened to with interest. For scientific evaluation, I was sent to IAFIA and RIAFIAN. If my report was positively evaluated at the Academy of Sciences, then at the Zarev seminar at the FIAN, it was a complete debacle. The only person who spoke positively was Vladimir Ilyich Muromtsev. Later, I found out that he had been engaged in similar research for several years. Despite this debacle, the work on researching the properties of neutrinos at very low energies received state support and funding. In 1989, 90, and 91, several scientific groups worked in my MIFI, RUDN, and the Institute of Physical Chemistry. For instance, Nikolai Vladimirovich Samsonenko and Vladimir Vladimirovich Muromtsev participated in this work, and even Lyudmila Borisovna Boldireva and her sister Nina Borisovna. Theoretical studies were conducted on the potential properties of neutrinos of ultra-low energies and their cosmic flows. Experiments are planned that could confirm the obtained results. We all know what happened at the turn of 91 to 92. Well, consequently, funding for our projects stopped, and I ended up unemployed. Anatoly Evgenievich Akimov took me in. He miraculously preserved his Vent Institute during those difficult times. During this time, I worked a bit on the topic of torsion fields, but mainly continued my work in the area of ultra-low energy neutrinos, considering possible experiments. I was still living in the same basement on planet Naya. But then one day, some tough guys came, they needed a basement for storage, and we had to urgently clear out of this lived-in basement. I partially moved the equipment to my home laboratory and partially to Natalia Vasilievna Krasnogorskaya's laboratory on Gamalia Street. Natalia Vasilievna was engaged in atmospheric electricity research. I suspect that in her youth, she was the prototype for one of the heroines in Granin's novel, I'm Going into the Storm. I also touched on this interesting topic a little. I set up electric field intensity meters and did various measurements. But I did the main work in my home laboratory. It was generally understood what effects cosmic streams of neutrinos of electronic energies might cause. One of the expected effects was the fluctuation of beta decay rates with a period of 1 year due to the superposition of spontaneous beta decays with inverse beta decays caused by cosmic flows of high energy neutrinos, flows of low energy neutrinos. It was necessary to solve two problems. Isolate the electrons associated with inverse beta decays against a strong background of spontaneous decays and ensure multi-year measurements with high stability. The setup was developed and manufactured, allowing continuous signal recording across many channels. Up to 20 channels could operate. Such multi-channel capability is needed not only to register pulses from several radioactive sources, but also to monitor environmental parameters, temperature, and atmospheric pressure. Oh, dog. Air humidity, background radioactivity, and indeed fluctuations with an amplitude of 0.1% were detected. Other predicted effects are related to the fact that ultra-low energy neutrinos can reflect mirror-like from smooth surfaces. But here, after all, it is probably necessary to say a few words about how these low energy neutrinos differ from high energy neutrinos that are typically studied in nuclear physics. The fact is that the interaction region of a particle is determined by the de Broglie wavelength. If we look at the de Broglie wavelength of those particles used by nuclear physicists, which nuclear physicists study at energies of mega electron volts and higher, it turns out that the interaction area of neutrinos is the size, not even the size of a nucleus, but the size of one nucleon. If we look at the de Broglie wavelength of these ultra-low energy neutrinos, then they have a length, the interaction area of microns or even many microns. And within this area, there is a huge number of particles, billions of particles. The interaction happens collectively, and this, which causes a very strong increase in the efficiency of neutrino interaction with matter. Well, and this coverage of interaction with a vast number of particles means that the interaction happens macroscopically. Well, roughly in the same way as light interacts with matter, as light interacts with transparent matter, it refracts and reflects. In the same way, neutrinos at certain energies can mirror reflects from sufficiently smooth surfaces. This opens up the possibility of focusing these particles using mirrors with parabolic surfaces and allowed for the co-creation of unique neutrino telescopes. As detectors placed in focus, beta sources emitting particles of inverse beta decay were used, similar to those used in detecting the periodic fluctuations of radioactivity. The effect should be observed as rare short bursts, and such bursts were indeed detected. During the experiments, I mentioned a series of measurements of great duration were accumulated, and it would be interesting to process them using Schnoll's method. I tried to see the patterns he discovered. I really liked Simon Illich. I was especially drawn to his reports presented in a unique, inimitable manner. I met this remarkable person and tried to establish scientific contacts, but my love was unrequited. My data series did not interest him, and he rejected my articles. As a result of 20 years of work, everything I could do in the study of cosmic flows, neutrinos, and ultra-low energies, I did. The results were published and reported in many scientific organizations. Everything is described in the book. I had to move forward. And so at a seminar of Nikolai Vladimirovich Samsonenko at the end of the year 2011, Yuri Nikolaevich Bazhukov invited me to participate in experiments with nickel saturated with hydrogen. From that time, my scientific interest shifted to cold nuclear reactions. I will not speak much about this. Everything that was done has been published and reported, including in this webinar, and is described in the book, The Road is Conquered by the Traveler. In short, ushers, our first nickel hydrogen reactors operated for 1 hour. A few years later, in the Kaita laboratory, the reactor's operation duration reached several months, with a production thermal power of up to 1 kilowatt. At first, it was completely unclear what LENR was. But recently, the fog began to clear. I reported on a hypothesis explaining the main properties of this phenomenon at our last conference. These reports are published in the conference proceedings. An article will be published in the upcoming issue of Rensit magazine. Well, what to say in conclusion? Not only a burden at my age, my wealth. I do not keep this wealth in a locked chest. I will be happy if it turns out to be in demand. Thank you for your attention and for the kind words about me.
So I think that was a very humble summary of his life. I think there was a lot of people that had some nice words to say about him, myself included. You'll see that at some point. And yeah, it's amazing because I have it here, the original of Space Earth Human, and he gave this to me on the 27th of February 2015. That's over 10 years ago. Yeah, I consider him a friend. We converse as friends, and also of collegiate people. So yeah, amazing life, amazing contribution, and he's not giving up. So absolutely fantastic. The second presentation is from Professor Anatoly Klimov, and he will be talking about the state of investment into various cold fusions. He doesn't give an exhaustive list, but he goes through some of the ones that you may be aware of, and also the history of variations of his technology, which are informing on some of the leaders outside of Russia. and we can have a little talk about that. At the end, we can talk about these three presentations, but for now, I will play the second one.
Well, of course, we have gathered during a significant period, so to speak. What is there to say? It is always nice to congratulate the jubilarian. Well, in short, well, especially since you're on the final stretch, when it's time, Sasha, to speed up. I mean, all skiers on the final stretch try to speed up and snatch victory. After all, victory, well, it's clear still I would like our athletes to win this victory, but if you do win, probably everyone will be happy. In terms of, first of all, well, the construction of such a reactor, I mean, a reliable one, in which everyone will believe. And secondly, I think, well, if it is possible to approach a semi-empirical theory, that would also be a great achievement. So, well, that's probably the introduction. And the non-introductory part is that I would like to thank you purely in a friendly, human way, and as a scientist to a scientist. So we have nevertheless produced a joint work called Invitation to the Round Table. It is posted on Prosverny's website. Unfortunately, probably not many have read it there, but actually I consider it a very good creation that poses more questions about the problems that should be drawn attention to. But so our debate, of course, did not lead to any final conclusion. Well, now directly to what concerns both you and me and everyone, our entire community that is involved. The point of our seminar is to unite, to conduct brainstorming sessions, to bring together, well, people who are involved. Well, let's tentatively call it LENR. Here, I've labeled it as HM and LENR. Well, first of all, so to speak, I prepared this presentation and presented it, you see, at Rosnano to outline the current status of research in the field of environmentally clean metal hydrogen energy. And so, and why did I do this? Well, here on this slide, I am showing that this is not just a little, not a small matter of the strategic security of our country in this, in this race for new energy technologies. So what's the relevance of this new scientific and technical direction? Well, I conditionally call it LENR. So what concerns me, and I made this informational brief to send it to the very top, trying to reach the big doors as a citizen of this country. For those who care that these technologies are already being used in future dual-use technologies, I draw your attention. Here, there are already reports of the creation of onboard generators for producing heat and electricity, as well as high-energy substances well, this means replacing our gunpowder with these new explosive substances. Of course, they are not as powerful as an atomic bomb, but because they are 1,000 times stronger than, say, chemical explosives. So, and now I already attended was, well, at the university in Pennsylvania in the United States. So they directly showed me this rocket launch. It is currently operating on new fuel called ALICE. AL is aluminum nanoparticles mixed with ice and water. And so it would seem this slush then, you know, they make it in the refrigerator, turning it into ice. So they insert this block into the rocket, and what happens there, only God knows. The important thing is that the rocket flies, there is thrust. And so to speak, the energy there is not worse, but even exceeds the current gunpowder boosters, widely used now. But gunpowder boosters, well, they are explosive. During shaking, cracks form. So it's all about energy safety and, so to speak, operation in online mode. So you can, so to speak, transport water and then freeze it before launch. That's an example, really. Now, the experiments and theory today show what? That we are dealing with high-calorie nutrition. A fuel with a specific energy reserve that can, according to well-proven global figures, reach no less than 10 kV per atom. So, and this is for the hydrogen atom, which is used there in these reactors, or the metal atom, which essentially reacts with this, so to say, with water, with hydrogen ions, well, with protons, so to speak, or now I will emphasize that carbon turned out to be no worse than metal, but it is cheap. And then hydrocarbons can be used in a new way. I will show at the end of the presentation, so to speak. But we have already achieved 10 times more efficiency than just burning them. In the new mode, which, so to speak, I believe LENR is already following because transmutation is occurring. Such a high content cannot be explained today by chemical reactions, even exotic ones. This is the opinion of the global community. So, and it is enough to say that in order to make autonomous power sources with a capacity of 10 kilowatts, well, sufficient for a house, for a family. In general, we would need, let's say, of nanocluster fuel, let's say, aluminum, 1 kilogram to function for a whole month. Well, if you calculate the costs, so to speak, for this aluminum, it will certainly turn out to be much more advantageous than using some other electric or chemical sources. Okay, so now I want my government, let's say, straight, real information. Many of you also don't know, so I just like this. I'd like to remind you of this information, or just say that this year starts, we will be witnesses, participants, approximately 5 to 10 demo experiments with, well, for now, let's say these are trial, not. Not industrial, not mass-produced, but prototype models. Nevertheless, these are models that provide extra thermal power. Yes, for example, the company Brilliant Corporation USA. So the power that was demonstrated even at the 24th conference was 1 kilowatt, COP24. This year they will already, so to speak, with the commercialization of this project in mind, show power presumably 10 kilowatts. And this is already a pre-industrial prototype. I emphasize a pre-industrial prototype. So, well, sorry, my mouse is not working well. So the second company, which is also, well, this is my favorite, my main competitor, with whom I'm still trying to somehow participate in this race. Well, naturally, well, like on the ski track. So Robert Mills, well, they apparently have already created a 150 kilowatt installation. It has already been demonstrated next to the cone to the United States Congress. They were heating, well, like everything there, well, like a real multi-story building. So, and after that, commercialization is already underway. 40 leading investors, top ones, among the largest investors in the States. They are not disclosing who, have already signed agreements and contracts with them for the creation of industrial prototypes. Well, here you see that this steam generator on the right, and here it is being tested. And this, in essence, is the machine they used in this building. So nothing special. This stand provides 150 kilowatts. Well, it's all written here. You can read it, so to speak. Here, national capital there. This building is called, well, what? The guys did great, launched it last year. The third message is from Clean Planet. This is Japan. So, jointly with, I already mentioned this company to you. It is a leading company in Japan that deals with boiler systems and heating systems. So here, this whole corporation, what is it? The whole corporation consists of about 10 universities. And now, how many private companies are included in this Japanese national project? Well, you all know that Europe is trying not to fall behind. A very small commission funded the project K Clean HME. So it was successfully completed in February of this year, by the way. Final reports and articles on this program were released. See how many universities in different countries were involved. Well, so within the framework of national, but not national, let's say, the European program. And the average cost of a separate grant in this program reached 1 million euros. And he goes, what? And we have nothing. So here, the message is more serious. In the Department of Energy, DOE, a division called RP has been created. We already talked about it. Last year, the funding reached 1 million euros, $1 million. This year, it goes up to $30 million. So in the next 5 years, by the end of this same 5-year plan, it has been decided to increase this funding to 300 million. Well, starting from this year, this funding will begin. So from private companies, $60 million that is, are additionally attached to this amount, so to speak. So these government structures are funding, look, NASA, the largest aerospace organization, naval aviation. And here the main project they are sharing is the highway project. So within the framework of this project, research has been conducted over 20 years in the area exactly of developing HMI technology. For what purpose? The development, as I mentioned, of a new generation of explosives and onboard energy sources, especially for these drone submarines and naval torpedoes that will be lying on the seafloor for years. You probably know this company, but yes, recently I myself came across all these videos are available on the internet. This company is headed by Professor Andrew Atkins. He is the one I know. So, well, this team worked together with my colleagues from Bryansk, and now they are, so to speak, essentially the technologies from Bryansk again, so to speak. Well, I won't name names, so to speak, as I would like, but in any case, they continue to develop this technology. So the point is that in the superheated liquid under an atmosphere at pressures up to 400 atmospheres, this almost close to the critical point of water means it heats it up to, well, also almost to the critical point. And then they create an electric discharge, create plasma in these cavitation bubbles. And already it starts to boil under such conditions. So what have they achieved now? They have already developed a boiler system of this type up to 18 kilowatts. And note that their cup already reaches not 3 as ours, from 13. And here is shown one of their, in essence, demonstration tests. So you see right here the coefficient copy 13, which on here. Well, about this company, I already mentioned an NG8, so to speak. Well, but you see, they also used to work together with Bryansk and Atkinson. But now, since the year 2022, my vortex reactor is actively being developed there, and very good results have been obtained with this reactor. They plan in the year 2025. I can also demonstrate two variants, well, of energy intensity. That's it. Well, an advanced, so to speak, version of my plasma reactor. And secondly, they have, it seems, already made a certain device that outputs electrical energy. So there. Moreover, the coefficient of this, well, conditionally speaking, the coefficient, but not for thermal energy, instead for output electrical energy, is around from 3 to 5 today. Well, regarding calorimeters, he's an unrivaled, let's say, specialist. Ah. Well, he claims that he personally believes and can sign any certificate that a 3-co. It turns out in my design, essentially, a vortex reactor. Here, well, and here, oh, sorry. And here is a diagram of this vortex reactor, how it looks for them. And here it shows that indeed, in this experiment, they had 227. So this was broadcast to the entire world. So they increased it starting from 2, finished at 7, with a COP coefficient of 7. Well, in our institute, just so the government knows that in principle something is being done in Russia. Well, I took my team as an example, showed that we have such reactors too. On the right is what went into the NG8, and on the left is what basically is currently in my laboratory, so to speak. In the middle, it was, so to speak, well, one of the experimental samples, and this is already almost a serial sample. Well, and I, well, don't know if it will work out or not. Well, I'll show you. How does it work? This reactor just on humid air, just on air. Here's the nickel cathode heating up to red hot. But here on the right, you see we've extended this gap to 200 millimeters. And as I expected, more soot. The bigger the fire, the more soot. We have now received coke at around 12. Everything is the same. On the left, yes, there is a 3. On the right, long plasma formation of 200 millimeters. So, as I said, the coefficient increased by 4. Yeah, well, just a few words about hydrocarbons, which, so to speak, we are now using in our reactors. So any substances, well, what's wrong with hydrocarbons? Yeah, they have hydrogen and, so to speak, an analog of metal, carbon. So what happens if you run all this? We even used, for example, plexiglass. Here, you can evaporate it in a capillary discharge, cause erosion, decompose the sock, and make it work anew. The experimental conditions, the criteria are very intense. When we did all this in a supersonic flow, igniting, well, propane is practically impossible. It's not simple, so to speak. This air propane, well, the conditions, believe me,
Sorry about that. I lost connection there. I'm going to see if I can get that up again for you. And I've got it as a file, yes, in OBS. And I don't know how to queue to a point in OBS. So give me a second. If this doesn't work, we'll do something different. Give me a second. Yeah, that's not playing. Why is that not playing? Okay, give me a second. Okay, I'm going to switch computers for that. Sorry about that. Yeah, these videos, I will work on them a little bit more and publish them separately. Thank you very much, Skoggy Hoggins, for that £20 donation. Really appreciate it. I'll try once more to get this working on here. If it doesn't work, what happened was I had the next video that I was chucking in on another USB stick, and it ended up by causing the hub to turn off, which is not very helpful, I have to say. So we shall see what happens here. Yeah, that's not actually doing what it should do. No, it's just refusing to play it now. Ah, maybe. It's not picking up from where it was. Give me a few more minutes. I will try a different way. Sorry, this happens sometimes. Yeah, it's 21:22. It's easy enough to remember. But why are you not playing? Not playing. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to open another source. 2122 is where it needs to be.
Well, of course, we have gathered during a significant period, so to speak. What is there to say? It is always nice to congratulate the jubilarian.
Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, yeah, it's I need to copy the file. It didn't like adding another source, another USB onto that hub, and it's just dropped the connection again, so not very helpful. What happens when you sometimes try to do something different? Forgive me. So I don't know if you caught, whilst we are trying to fix this, that Klimov was saying that NetIQ and Ngate both have lineage with his plasma vortex reactors, and that is something I suspected for a while, but this is the first time I've heard it spelt out. But he's kind of like stuck behind the problems going on, that means he can't get his technology out. And I guess as a 75-year-old, that must be immensely frustrating to be in a situation where you have basically the world's leading technology and you can't capitalize on that because, because of stuff. Yeah, a little bit tedious. Okay, so we're going to copy that off there. Bit tedious. Right, it might drop out again when I pull out that USB stick. Okay, all right, let's see if that does. Let's go back to here. Is it playing? It's not playing. It's not playing. Tedious. No, it's just not going to play, is it? Okay, give me a sec. Okay, couple more seconds, and if it doesn't work, I will switch to the other computer. Don't play videos. Thanks for the tip. Yeah. Okay. I will do that. I'll drag it to the desktop. Let's see if we can do that. It's all set up, but anyway, let's do that. I know you're right. I know you're right. Yeah. I'm not so sure it didn't get too hot. Anyway. So yeah, I sense a kind of restrained bitterness to a degree in Klimov's tone there, because his life's work is effectively being developed in countries in a way that he can't really interact or be a part of. And the great shame is that effectively he's got the best technology, and he kind of shows that in the bits that you haven't seen yet, which you're going to see in a little while. And, you know, you got to feel for him to a degree. Okay, I think it's these two. You feel for I'm okay. I don't have my life's work being developed without me, if you know what I mean. Okay, so we have 2 videos on here, and where's the other one gone? Live. Who would do it? Who would do it? Okay, they're all on the SSD now. Now let's see if it's still going to cause me issues. Let's change. I'm going to make, no, we'll change that one, and it's still not going to play it. So I'm going to go here, and I'll change it to the local source. Desktop. Klimov, open. Okay.
Well, of course, we have gathered during a significant period, so to speak.
Yes, let's play.
What is?
Okay, 22. All right, you ready? We'll cue in just a little bit before. So, in fact, we'll take it a little bit before. Okay. Play it away.
Work anew. The experimental conditions, the criteria are very intense. When we did all this in a supersonic flow, igniting, well, propane is practically impossible. It's not simple, so to speak. This air propane, well, the conditions, believe me, the specialists know this. Those who work with hypersonic scramjet engines, even hydrogen does not burn under such conditions, where we could ignite propane with plasma. It burned well, but if we switch to the mode, let's say preliminary reforming of this matter, hydrocarbons, well, let's say I will use argon or helium instead of air. Look, it burns completely differently. For one thing, the flame spreads in both directions, although the flow goes from left to right, just like there. no less, no worse. Here you can see that the remnants of propane are glowing bluish. And here it reacts quite differently in these tails on the left and right. That is, it enters an operation mode where energy is released much more than during combustion. 10 times more. Well, and look, well, that's all we managed. This is clearly not propane burning. This is in general some kind of and a long snake, which more resembles not, will soon coil into a ball. Or the green one. These are the same hydrocarbons, so to speak, glowing. And moreover, here in the first and second mode of beginning, it's already starting to generate, a laser effect appears, meaning there is such a strong imbalance that unfolds, you see, thanks to this, with this process, highly non-equilibrium, LENR's high energy. That means no mirrors are needed. The laser starts working. As you saw, I demonstrated to everyone. Right on this tube, there's, well, quite a strong laser beam like this. Well, essentially, the main results for this section. So the first point I wanted to focus on in this part is that you see these cheap hydrocarbon nanoclusters and ion hydroids obtained by reforming propane in argon can be used in new generation LEN reactors. It doesn't have to be hydrogen, it doesn't have to be palladium, nickel. Right now, the whole world is searching for which nanoclusters are the cheapest. You can't think of anything cheaper than carbon. So everything else turns out to be expensive. And without nanoclusters, your reactors will not work well. But how to obtain them? Again, it requires significant expenses. That is, if we are still talking about the ultimate goal, so to speak, of forming, so to speak, new sources, autonomous sources. It is so. So currently we have obtained and implemented processes of sharp acceleration. That is, we have learned to control the speed of the LENR reactions, so to speak, from slow burning, which is typical for all installations in the world. These are quite slow processes, of course, to quite fast ones when all this happens abruptly with an explosion. And the explosion now already increases the energy release equivalent to trinitrotoluene 4 to 10 times. This has been published by us. Well, and in all these processes in the hydrocarbon, so to speak, LENR reactor, there is a very strong transmutation of chemical elements, which I mentioned earlier. Which is actively developing and financed worldwide. What could this threaten our country with? Loss of its leading position in the global market for the extraction and sale of hydrocarbon fuel when transitioning to cheaper hydrogen-containing fuel, for example, water. So even if we take the first step on a hydrocarbon reactor, Lena, we will not need so many hydrocarbons, and the world will not need that much either. And what is our economy based on? This is, so to speak, ultimately the loss of our country's energy sovereignty and its energy security, and then the complete collapse of its economy. Well, meanwhile, that means so I wanted to say that with the help of these plasmoid technologies, the energy efficiency will be increased compared to existing traditional combustion today by 10 or 100 times higher, so to speak. Therefore, the need to use hydrocarbons in the same quantity as used today should, it inevitably may decrease. Here, scientifically, the use of ordinary water as fuel in newly created autonomous energy installations will change the need for using hydrocarbons as the main fuel worldwide. That was my brief speech. I think Sasha, so that here's Parkhomov, he will join and might
I'm not having the best day, am I? Yeah, so you missed 5 booms there. Sorry, I can't remember them. No, I'm joking. Yeah, so what Anatoly Klimov is said at the end there is he wanted to speak with Alexander Parkhomov to finalize this working document that they want to send up to the higher echelons to say, look, you know, Japan has an all of country and all of university and top industrial automotive industry based approach to exploring LENR, funding it, supporting it, and integrating that into their research programs. In Europe, they've done this 5-year clean HME program that concluded. There isn't an extension as it stands at the moment, but anyway, that kind of spurred America to start doing a lot of research in its backyard, and it looks like in the next 5 years that's going to be going up towards about 300 million. That's the first time I've heard those figures, but that if that's the case, it's very significant. But he notes that the majority of that is towards propellants and explosives, and that's unfortunate, but you know, there we are. And so, but what I got from him was a sense of frustration that there are these companies that are moving forward with this technology around the world. And his experience, which he has published from 2019 onwards, but he actually slipped in a video of this laser effect going on in a hydrocarbon plasma vortex reactor from 2001. If the video timeline is to be believed there, it shows that what I expect from Anatoly Klimov is that he has much more up his sleeve than he let be known to his former colleagues in the UK that then led on to Ngate's work, NetIQ and then Ngate. So it's definitely a deep sense of frustration, and you can see in his classic kind of reserved but slightly holding back his anger at being 75 years old and seeing his work being developed outside of the country. But he knows that there is so much more that he has done and his teams have done in this research. And so it's just not an even playing field. And so, you know, I kind of hope that what I've seen from Anatoly, typically, and I saw this particularly with what happened at ICCF 22, is that as soon as he thinks that something that he already knows is going to be made public, he'll come out with a whole series of data. So, for instance, at ICCF 22, which was in 2019, I had already found out that it was neutron capture materials like boron, gadolinium, indium, cadmium, these kind of elements that capture these fake neutrons and allow them to be thermalized. And of course, I've argued that carbon is also something that can at least moderate, and that's why it's used in an RBMK reactor. And so it would interact as well. And I've argued that that is why you get a more thermal output from carbon added to a Marsa gas. That is to say, if you use a Marsa gas on its own, it does a more coherent process. But if you add 10% hydrocarbon to it, it does less coherence and more thermal heat output. And so you get very different effects. Like with the coherence, you end up with LENR very quickly, and punching holes through things, and coherent matter explosions, like we saw when we did the research with the Marsa in 2019. But when you have carbon in the mix, you don't get those kind of magic effects going on, but you get more thermal. So if you have a system where you have carbon in the mix, and you are forcing a situation where you have, and you look at his system, he has the plasma area, that'll and with the flow going one way, and the and the vorticity, that gives you multi-axis shear with the ions, that produces these exotic vacuum objects, these plasmoids, these plasma toroids. And then they go and interact with the fuel component, being the nanoclusters of carbon in this case. And so you get the maximum thermalization of the cluster and any nuclear reactions that you're going on there. And by playing with those parameter spaces, he thinks you can get 100 times the power out of a normal hydrocarbon, which means, of course, you would have 100 times the energy, which means you need 100 times less of the hydrocarbon going in, which means basic seed oils could be used for producing all the energy we need domestically in this way. So deep frustration. And so I kind of hope, so basically what happened was in 2018, I found out that this was going to, fake neutrons, or whatever it was, the strange radiation was interacting with neutron moderating and neutron capturing materials. And he was forced to admit that to me, and that's what moves his COP from 1 to 2 to up to 10 and even higher than 10. And I tried to force him to make it public in 2019, but it was only later that he made it public in one of these Russian sessions, and I published that. So, but when he saw, who was it? It was Slobodan Stankovic show the coherent matter forming from a Marsa gas going through a capillary tube, he was forced to release the classified Soviet capillary tube work, which he actually mentioned a bit in this presentation. So I'm pretty sure that if the certain situation that is preventing Russia from playing a bigger role in international affairs is resolved, and hopefully, Anatoly is 75, he's not going to live forever. Hopefully that's resolved quickly, and this incredible wealth of research that he has already done can come to the fore and deliver for humanity. And he knows that in Russia that is not a good place to develop that technology, because it is so reliant on hydrocarbons for its economy. However, if other countries are going to go ahead with developing his technology anyway, and they are the buyers for that product, well, then perhaps they should be developing it in Russia as well. And so it's kind of like you're forced into a situation to do it anyway. And so I think that's, I can see the man's going through quite a bit of torment there, and he would like to win the race. I know he would like Alexander Parkhomov to win the race in the theoretical sense. Yeah, it was almost painful to watch that when I first saw it. And like I say, I will do a better translation and get that out the door. Okay, so the last one I'm going to play, I have to set up here, and hopefully it'll work first time. And that is of Baranov, and then we'll go through the various presentations and pick out any things and take up your questions. Okay, so I'm going to add it. It's going to go dark here whilst I add in another one of these video clips, and we'll see what we can do. It really doesn't like me. Oh, I think, you know what, I can put this on switcher, can't I? Studio mode, right. I should be able to leave it on that and do something in the background. Ah, there we go. Except the image is in the wrong place, but anyway, we'll see how this works. Okay, so you don't have a blank screen at the moment. I want media source, and I want that. And we're going to go Baranov. This, for me, is a stunning little presentation, and I hope you enjoy it. It's revealing data that I don't think has ever been shared in the West. And I felt deeply honored when I saw it. Clearly, and he says at one point, I think that's probably all I should say. and I think that's because the significance of this is just unbelievable. But yeah, you're gonna have a look at something which I don't think we're ever gonna see made again. I just don't think so. It's one of these kind of experiments that needed that time in history for it to be made. Yeah, mind-blowing experiment you're about to see here. So let me see if this will work. That's not working at all, is it? If I have any luck here. Let's see if that, anything there. Okay, it is there, so good. This should work. Right, I'm going to switch back and you're going to go here. We're going to make this full screen.
First of all, I should congratulate Parkhomov
And I'm going
on his anniversary.
to pause it, rewind it. Give me a sec, I just need to make sure the audio is so I can hear it. Just a few seconds here and we'll be good to go. Hopefully. Okay. I think this will work. Okay. It's a pretty good translation on this. There's just a couple of mistakes. But for me, this was one of the highlights of the year so far. So without further ado, here you go.
All right. First of all, I should congratulate Parkhomov on his anniversary. Well done. He lifted a barbell weighing 80 and continues to lift barbells and all sorts of heavy weights. Well done. Okay, with Parkhomov, I have a lot, so to speak, in common. We once collaborated with Muromtsev Vladimir Ilyich, and Muromtsev wanted to build the project, which was called Neutrino Village. that is Neutrino Village. I told Parkhomov here that I will consider that we are from the same village. Dima, move closer to the computer and speak louder. You can't hear, right? Can you hear me? Well, and now a little about something sad. So, somewhere in the seminar before last, and from the audience, there were shouts from the audience that neutrinos do not exist. And not just one shout, but like two shouts. Someone said, two remarks. And considering that many were sitting silently without shouting, then in society there actually exists. In our scientific community, well, especially in science, a significant area where people believe that neutrinos do not exist. Well, because, well, indeed, it interacts very poorly. It is barely visible. These experiments are often very indirect, especially regarding observation of low-energy neutrinos. Well, we discussed it over the phone. He suggested I talk about my experience in the showcase experiment, and which I conducted after graduating from the institute in Serpukhov, where there was a neutrino experiment in a mirror chamber. Well, that's it, and I am fulfilling Zatelepin's wish. So, I was in Serpukhov from 1971 to 1985. Well, I will talk about the results of this work. But first, here's a bit image. Oh, now, yes. This is accelerator, which is located near the settlement, near Serpukhov. This is the accelerator ring, a 70 giga-electron-volt accelerator. This is a large experimental hall. It was built according to the same design as the sports complex in Lushniki, a very big hall. From this, so the accelerator accelerated protons to an energy of 70 giga-electron volts. To produce a neutrino beam, the accelerator was used. Protons were extracted from the accelerator, right here, to the neutrino channel. Here it is indicated with an arrow, where yes, this is the summer cooperative scala, and here, well, yes, it's like that here. And this is a lake nearby. Now we have advanced there, here. And this arrow points to the place where the detector was located, which registered these neutrinos. Well, in general, this experiment seems to me one of the most illustrative, even compared to other experiments in neutrino physics with bubble chambers, which were at CERN and Fermilab. Well, this accelerator, 70 giga-electron-volt protons. Every 7 seconds, a beam is released. Well, there are several bunches, all 5 times 10 to the 12 protons per cycle. The accelerator consumed power of 27 megawatts. That's substantial. There, for the energy. Money was paid. And now here, neutrino channel scheme. So the beam is extracted from the accelerator and hits the target. There were different ones, but mainly it was an aluminum target, 60 centimeters long and 1 centimeter in diameter. The entire beam, all these 10 to the 12 protons were inserted here. Here, the target generated a lot of things, but mostly pi and kaon, pi and Ka mesons. These mesons flew at a small angle, and they flew into a kind of magnetic focusing system. There were 3x-shaped magnetic lenses through which a current of 400 kiloamperes passed. And at the moment of the beam dump, and the K-meson were refocused to fly more or less parallel. And they flew like that into a pipe with a diameter of 1.5 meters and a length of 164 meters, which was also vacuumized. Well, so they wouldn't interact with air, but to ensure they decayed here. These pica mesons decayed, formed. Now I'll show the next picture. Here the pi meson decays into mu plus and a neutrino. If the sign is different, when P minus is also formed during another magnet activation. The minus is focused, and then we see antineutrino. So, and then neutrino flies somewhere toward the detector, and the muon hits the iron shield. The iron shield is a huge, a piece of iron. So slabs are piled up into such a table move, 59 meters long. All the ions are absorbed here. But the neutrino slips through and continues. There is also a curved spectrometer and electron volt, and further a scat bubble chamber. Here, some neutrinos. And what about everything after that? Well, typically on every 30th frame, on every 30th beam dump, a neutrino event was registered. I'll show them later. Here's the neutrino spectrum. So what is here? What is on the axis here? This is a GeV. Maybe it's hard to see. Let me read it. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And this is the number of neutrinos that per proton. It turns out to be 10 to the minus 4. So only 1/10,000th of the protons there produce bosons and neutrinos, which then fly into the chamber. Here, well, these are pages I pulled from a dissertation. It was the era before there were electronic, before the electronic era, there were no numbers, and the pages have yellowed, and therefore such pictures I just, and here they are. Well, this is the antineutrino spectrum, and some background neutrinos are indicated here. Well, here are a few words about all the channels of obtaining neutrinos. So, pions give muon neutrinos, K plus give muon neutrinos. 63% of decay goes through this channel, and 4% is through this channel. That is, a small part of electron neutrinos might be in the chamber. Also from the decay of neutral K mesons, they can also form or 3 electron neutrinos, but columns do not focus, so there are also few of them. Well, now a few words about the camera. Well, everything is written here. The total volume is 6 meters. The working volume is the liquid, bromochlorodifluoromethane. Density is 1.5, 1.5 times denser than water. The pressure in the chamber fluctuated from 10 to 20 atmospheres. It was generally maintained at 20, and at the moment of the beam's arrival, the pressure dropped, making the liquid metastable and sensitive to ionizing radiation. Therefore, tracks that formed bubbles were recorded. The magnetic field in the chamber was, well, 2 Teslas. It's really astonishing. The volume is enormous, 6 cubic meters, and 2 Teslas in such a volume. It was a magnet. I didn't write this. The power to 13 megawatts. So now the camera images. Here, Here is essentially the chamber. It is made of stainless steel, and this is the protective volume. Iron. This and this is the magnet. Here the chamber is moved into the magnet, and this is the place where one can crawl in. I crawled into the chamber here when magnetic field measurements were being conducted. The magnetic field was measured carefully. Despite the magnet being constant, it still varied in different places. Here's another picture. Heavy. Mamam. The front part security area. Through this glass, they filmed those very criminal events. The glass is unique. The thickness of the glass is 14 centimeters. It is optical, and it was cast in Lotcarino. A haircut in Uganda from next to the platinums to the soldier with a rifle. Here we broke several panes of glass. One pane was broken at the factory when they opened the door in winter. It was cooling. They opened the door and it cracked. And we broke 2 panes in experiments. That's how it happened. Well, here's another view like this. Here's the glass. Here is the membrane from which air is released and the liquid in the chamber expands. This protective volume is filled with pure water. Photography was done with 4 pairs of cameras. Well, and now the central, so to speak, the central picture of my report. This is in fact a photograph of the chamber at the moment of operation. Here's a neutrino event. It's not very visible, and later I'll show it in more detail. These circles are crosses. Glass crosses attached to the glass. The diameter of this circle is 5 centimeters. Dim. Can you zoom in on this image right now? No, I will show it later. Here, I will show it later. Well, now it's more visible, right? Yes, it's a bit better visible here, yes. And here it's even better. Yes, even better. This circle here, it's 5 centimeters. That is it. Well, you understand the sizes here. And here is a neutrino event. A neutrino hit right here in this place by a molecule. By a nucleus. Some nucleus from this bromisophorone molecule. And the several particles were born. This is the negative track. I say this confidently because there's a delta electron on it. Fast tracks sometimes knock out electrons in the matter, so-called delta electrons. Delta electrons are negative, so negative spirals in this direction. This is a muon. And then this pion interacted and gave birth to a second star. This is also some kind of positive track. And here there's a bunch of these gamma quanta. They are associated with, they form from the decay of pion mesons. Pion mesons, live very briefly and decay instantly. And it does not give, and it does not pass at all. And it gives 2 gamma quanta, which then creates such an avalanche here, which is visible. All of this was being fitted. All the tracks were fitted point by point. There was a whole, so to speak, body of these measurement tables. The girls would sit and measure. Well, actually, at first they were looking for these events. Well, there's a lot to tell here. I probably shouldn't talk too long about this. I won't tell everything then. Well, in that material which I am presenting, there were 1,500 neutrino events there. This is a histogram that shows how they are distributed by energy. Oh, well, 10, 23 interceptions. Energy spectrum. A byte was lying from 3 to, well, we studied from 3 to 30G. Here, well, how this fits with, so to speak, other global data. And this is it. Tim, but these are the key points. Please refer to the axis. Attention, this is the main image. Please, we discussed this. This is GeV. And this is the cross-section divided by energy. This is the slope level of this. The course of the total cross-sections. Well, here are the latest, so to speak, figures. Here is the result. It's work in this direction. This is the total cross-section, not 3. And in the range from 3 to 30, GeV. Here, on the SCAT camera, here they are like this. 0.3 times 10 to the power of negative 38 per square centimeter per year. And for 0, 2.6. Well, who else? What else can I say? That this, of course, is an amazing field. And, well, what is... We had such good images because this camera is a classic. It's the largest and last classic spark chamber in which with traces are definitely observed. Here on the bubble chambers of VEPs, there was fisheye optics, which all the traces were curved, and the sign there was not immediately obvious. Well, what? If there are high energy neutrinos, then there are low energy neutrinos. Undoubtedly there is. So the question of the existence of neutrinos is sort of closed. That's probably all I wanted to say.
There you have it. The existence of neutrinos is closed. And if there are high energy neutrinos, there are low energy neutrinos. That is coming from the man who sat inside a 2 Tesla field 45 years ago. The 2 Tesla field itself took something like, I think he said, 13 megawatts to create that nice even field. So you have astounding levels of energy required to do this experiment. And we'll go through the slides and I'll try and clarify some points in there. Yeah, the translation sometimes, what it does is it kind of bunches up some audio and then it leaves a gap. And it sometimes when it can't work out what to say, it just doesn't bother. And so you just get these kind of muffled, not saying anythings. So, like I say, I need to spend more money and work a lot harder to get the translation better. But I thought that the significance of these 2 presentations that were given in respect of Alexander Parkhomov's 80th birthday, and there are other ones that I want to work on, but I've run out of credits on 11 Labs. Just incredible information, and these people are dying. And when I show you where I showed you that experiment there, this is equipment that basically you need to have 2 superpowers going at each other to warrant even spending the kind of money that had to be spent to do those experiments. So I just want to go over roughly what was said in that presentation. Like I say, when I've had time to do a better version of it, I will upload it in a better way. But it is utterly breathtaking what was revealed by Baranov on Wednesday. In my view, it's one of the highlights of this year. So here it is, this neutrino experiment, and it was the 70 giga electron volt accelerator in Protvino, and it was 45 years ago. Absolutely astounding. And so what he's saying is there is this location here, and they were having a joke about the fact that there was a little dacha here, and this is a community garden. You get similar sort of things in the UK and here in Czech Republic. And so you have this community garden right next to this important scientific facility. And he also noted that this is a lake up here, but that the facility is now expanded all the way over this lake area up here. So you have the accelerator line in here, and then this, he said this is about the size of a stadium, and this is where a lot of the experiments are. And then between here, where it comes out of the beam line, and down here, this is the actual detector down on the second arrow over here. Okay, so the accelerator fragment here, he's saying that the protons accelerated to 70 giga electron volts. Now, I'm going to show you something in a minute, and bear in mind that for what I'm going to show you, there needs to be this kind of energies involved, and even higher. And it's going to, it shocked me because of what has happened in the past, both in another researcher's work and what we observed in 2017. Every 7 seconds, it spat out 5 times 10 to the power 12 protons in a cycle every 7 seconds. And it took 27 megawatts of energy to deliver that. Okay, is everyone hearing me clearly? I don't want to talk to myself for a long period of time, so if people can let me know, that would be great. So the real money shot here is this one, and this shows the neutrino channel and how they know that it's a neutrino. And so you have your accelerator going around here, and every periodically they spit out the proton pulse. Excellent, thank you TK Mills and Cheffy. And that comes into an aluminum target, which is 600 millimeters in length and 10 millimeters in diameter. So these 5 times 10 to the power 12 up to 70 giga electron volt protons are coming out every 7 seconds, and they're going into this aluminium. And then they have this intense magnetic focusing beam to collect the pi mesons and so on. These are the breakup patterns of the nucleon. And they come into this evacuated decay tunnel, which is 100. This is meant to be L, and it's just the translation software here is, like I say, it needs to be cleared up. This shouldn't say 1, it should say L. That's the length. Is 164 meters long. 164 meters, 1.5 meter evacuated decay channel. So this is to give plenty of time for the products of the impacts of the protons into the aluminium to decay. And so what you get is pi mesons and mu mesons, and then the resulting things that can come out here are what he said were bosons and neutrinos. And then they have 59 meters of iron. 59 meters of iron. And so that is to show that, like, I guess there's not a lot of magnetic stuff getting through at this point with 59 meters of iron. And then they have this other discriminator here before it goes into the what the translator has gone bubbly camera scat is. It's the scat bubble camera. And if you heard right at the end there, I think this is the largest ever bubble chamber ever on Earth. And so there we go. And so effectively with pions and kaons, you have these decay channels. The translation is not so good here, so I'm just going to go here because you can see these. You got a muon and here neutrinos, and then you got this one pion and electron or positron, and you get neutrinos and antineutrinos coming out. Okay, so these are the things that can be produced, and they detected with the level of their ability to detect using the measurement in the chamber. They have these energies up to 30 gigaelectron volts and all the way down to looks like 1 gigaelectron volt. So there's a large spread spectrum there of neutrinos. Now, are they neutrinos? Well, they need to be neutrinos because they have to get through this lot, right? So subatomic particles are made here. They give all this distance here to decay, and then the remaining neutrinos can come out, and they then are, effectively screened by this ion and this chamber here, and that's what we get through here. So that's what. So Skoggy Hogan says, Bob, wait, are there now low or high power, or does it matter? Okay, so there's low neutrinos have a large de Broglie wavelength. This is what Parkhomov was talking about at the start of this evening, and it's the low energy neutrinos that do the work. However, you have clusters of low energy neutrinos in ordinary matter. And so Shishkin says that, these things are already hidden within ordinary matter and you can release them, and it's more efficient than trying to generate them or capture them from the cosmos because it's already in condensed matter. And when he says you do this for over 5 electron volt impact on, say, a proton, you are releasing a cluster, and these are partially magnetic. So in this schema, you wouldn't get these type of low, medium, and high energy solitons of clusters of relic neutrinos through here. Only normal neutrinos would get through here. So I hope that clarifies the difference between the two. But it's the ultra low energy or relic neutrinos that have the sufficient de Broglie wavelength so that their interaction with ordinary matter goes many orders of magnitude up, enabling low energy nuclear reactions. Okay, all right. So you have channels by which they can expect these to be produced, and their sensitivity can only really sense neutrinos at an energy of 1 giga electron volts. It's not really designed to look at things at lower energies. Okay, and you've got 70 giga electron volts coming in, and at the end of the detection process and the measurement process, they're seeing some that are nearly 30 giga electron volts. So these neutrinos are carrying 30 over 70 of the amount of energy that the original proton had. So that's quite impressive ability to capture that level of energy. Okay, and then antineutrinos here, again, antineutrinos up to around about 30, and these are background neutrinos. So background neutrinos you can already see start at a lower energy, and these are probably from high energy protons coming into the atmosphere and producing neutrinos that are detected in the detector. So to a degree, you can think that they were trying to create higher energy neutrinos so that they could see a signal above the background neutrinos. Okay, so because the background neutrinos only go up to 20 gigaelectron volts, so if they were ever going to be able to see neutrinos that they were generating themselves, they would have to have it above the 20 gigaelectron volts, which necessitated this kind of device. And so again, above 20 gigaelectron volts, there's still plenty, but it's you know, down here. Okay. So total volume of the chamber was 6 meters cubed. The effective volume, that is the area in which I guess they could see any neutrino events, would be 1.73, but 6 meters cubed. This is a lot of supercritical freon. Now, what do I mean by supercritical? I mean that freon is something that you use in as a refrigerant, and it has it turns to vapor very readily at certainly at the 36.6 degrees centigrade that it's operating at in this experiment. And so rather than it wants to be a gas, and what they do is they prevent it from being a gas at all, even though it's well above its boiling point, by keeping it under this very high pressure here, up to 20 atmospheres. So what that means is it's desperately, desperately wanting to be a gas, but it can't. And then anything of any energy that goes through causes it to become gas bubbles in the chamber. Okay, magnetic field of 2 Teslas over a volume of 6 meters cubed. And this is where you're getting this necessity for a 13 megawatt power supply just for the magnet. I mean, it's extraordinary science, really. Imagine these people, like people fiddling around with almost nothing, and they had been working on these ridiculous things that needed to be that big to be able to prove these things. And you can see at the end of that presentation, he was really rather, well, he started off by saying he was dumbfounded that there were 2 people shouting in the last session that neutrinos don't exist. And it's like, come on. If it wasn't neutrinos, what the hell was getting through that tens and tens of meters of lead after everything else had decayed out of the situation? Just come on. And then we get to see this incredible device. I mean, look at this. These are people here, and these are film cameras. I mean, wet film cameras. Okay. This is a massive device. So this is the magnet. This is the 2 Tesla magnet here. Okay. And this is the device. They've got rollers down here to roll this thing in. You can imagine it was engineered fantastically well. And between the cameras here and the 14 centimeter optical grade glass, they had a water chamber. Absolutely pure water. You know, someone did the maths to work out that they had to build something this big to be able to detect things that were more powerful than cosmic neutrino. It's mind-boggling. The amount of work that must have gone into working all this out, just utterly mind-boggling. Okay, so in the next image, you see the actual glass window. So there would have been water in front of this. So look at this. Look at that. I mean, this is perfectly flat. And they broke. They broke 3 of them. One they broke in experiments, and 2 others they broke because they opened the door and the temperature was, maybe it was too hot or they said too cold, but for whatever reason, the thermal gradient, I guess, caused it to shatter. So yeah, this is just mind-boggling. It's like something out of a sci-fi. The world's largest bubble chamber, the world's 6 cubic meters of freon. supercritical freon. Absolutely mind-boggling. So here you see the schema of the cameras. So, yeah, in here is our chamber, our optical chamber. These are our, he said 4 pairs of cameras. I think it's like reel to reel, so I think there's 4 actual cameras overall, unless there's one above and one below, maybe. There might have been, actually. There might literally have been 4 pairs. Anyway, and this whole area here was filled with pure water. Then you had your 14 centimeters of glass, and then you had your 6 cubic meters of supercritical freon. Okay, and here is a look into the chamber itself, and what he's saying is that these little marks on here, they are 5 centimeters across. Okay, I think it's 5 centimeters across, yeah. So and then he goes on and refers to this event here, which is a neutrino event. Okay, and it's an interaction of this potentially up to 40 gigaelectron volt neutrino with a nucleus of a atom in the freon, and you get a muon coming out here, and he talks about the fact that this over here is a type of electron that comes out. And these curved paths are curved because they're either electrons, so this is electron one way and the proton would be going the other way, or positive particles would be going the other way. So these would be kind of one charge and the other ones would be the other charge, but this is a muon. So this is a neutrino event, okay? And they characterized many of these. And in fact, over there, all of their experiments, they characterized 1,560 neutrino events and 373 anti-neutrino events. So this apparatus here was built to ultimately detect just 1,933, less than 2,000 neutrinos and antineutrinos in total. Unimaginable level of dedication. And here we can see, depending on the method, they can see the energies of the first and second method here. Number of events per gigaelectron volt. So when you look down here, 10 giga, this is 5 gigaelectron volts. So the majority of the neutrinos were in the range of, how should we put this, 2 gigaelectron volts and 10 gigaelectron volts. Probably even the majority is between 2 and say 7 or 8 gigaelectron volts. But there are some going all the way up to 30. Okay, so the ones that go above 20 are important to show that these are not cosmic neutrinos, probably from cosmic protons coming in, and so on. I didn't fully understand what he was talking about here, but apparently that's very important data, and this one too. A dependence of the slope parameter of the total cross sections of interactions of the neutrino. Anyway, I said that what we saw in this image is very important, and what I'm referring to here is this. Possibly a muon has come out here, and it's caused a fusion star here, a fusion star. And can anyone in the viewing audience tell me where they have seen those before? Where have they seen those before? Skoggy Hoggins asks, Bob, is there a reason for the shape of the chamber to be elongated instead of... I think it's basically they want a long distance, because like if you go up here, this is the full width of the chamber. This is 6 meters cubed, and this one here, if that's 5 centimeters or whatever, this is about the length of a human. I mean, look at the picture here. That is a human here. So, oh, maybe not. It's about 20-30 centimeters, the event that occurred over there. This is pretty sizable. Matsumoto, very good Nick Knock. It's called, by Matsumoto, a cold fusion star. Here we go, we've got plenty of them. There's one there, okay. And there's another one below, there, okay. And on the previous page, you've got a bunch here, and you're going to see these in beautiful quality in the updated book, okay. So, and here's him working out what's what, okay. So these are the different things that are coming out. So he details what is what. Okay, so this is by nuclear particle people who work in accelerators, which Matsumoto did. What you are seeing on this part here, is something that he recognized. He recognized that as a muon that's coming in here, and it's resulting in a fusion event over here. And so in the case of Matsumoto's, what he calls star production, the stars were obviously caused by some particles that were produced during cold fusion. Okay, so in the case of what you're seeing on the screen there, that is a muon. It is inferred that the multiple neutrons, such as quad neutrons, might have collided with the nuclei. Now, given that the minimum energy that this was 1 gigaelectron volt, all of the fractions out, and possibly up to 30 gigaelectron volts, I think that's right, or maybe even 40. 30 gigaelectron volts, okay? So this could be up to 30 gigaelectron volts. The energy contained within all of these events will be a fraction of that if they're just particles knocked out. But in the case of this is actually a fusion star, which means the incoming muon resulted, or the incoming particle resulted in a nuclear reaction at this point, which then yielded even more energy. Okay? And so this is awesome, because this isn't the only place that we've seen this in Matsumoto's work. We also saw this in the container of the fuel from Suhas-Ralkar. And if you remember, that caused the stars occurring in 2017 over a period of time, which means some nuclear events were occurring in that fuel after the fuel was put into the container, resulting in these nuclear stars being formed. That is just mind-boggling to me. Just mind-boggling. That cavitation led to such levels of captured, excited states in that fuel that it produced those cold fusion stars, or those fusion stars, those nuclear events. And so it got me thinking, when people were looking at that work that I was sharing of Suhas-Ralkar's cavitation produced fuel, that was 2017. I didn't hear about Matsumoto until 2018. And I only heard about this on Wednesday. But there must have been people all over the world that knew what they were talking about, that looked at that fuel in Suhas Ralkar's, that came out of Suhas Ralkar's cavitator, that knew it was producing this process here in a delayed fashion. And if they didn't, then they weren't paying attention. So there would have been a whole group of people around the world that if they paid attention to what I shared in 2017, they would know 100% certainly that Suhas Ralkar was producing something that led to delayed nuclear reactions. And bearing in mind, to produce this took a lot of energy. A lot of energy. Okay? Suhas Ralkar did have 4.5 kilowatts of sound. That's 1.5 kilowatts sound resonant into the processed fuel for as much as 200 hours. I think he said it didn't really wasn't really active until it went over 120 hours. But whatever was going on in the standing waves in that chamber, it was able to result in these kind of cold fusion stars. So, the books are in theory in May, assuming I have all the source. Yeah, I think the beam comes in from the side. And so they want a long chamber. Maximizes the... If you go back to the diagram, you can see that they... Where is it? The diagram at the top. Here. The diagram shows the chamber, so it comes in from the side. So you end up with you want a long distance for it to go through to maximize chance of an interaction with the supercritical freon. Okay. Right. So does anyone have any questions on the presentation of Baranov? Does anyone have any questions on the presentation of Baranov? Was that structured water? I don't think so. I think the water in front of where the film was. So he said, let's go back to the schematic here. He said that this between the lenses, the fisheye lenses of the cameras and the 14 centimeter thick glass, this was all pure water. Okay, so I guess deionized water. Okay, you didn't want anything floating around in there when you're looking for these events, and especially when after all of this expense, you've got an immense amount of how should we put this? you only get less than 2,000 detections after all of this expense. I think this area here is for the beam to come in. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I think this is neutrinos. Yeah, the neutrinos are coming from over here. Okay, he's got this little blue arrow down. He mentions it in his presentation. Question: are there any current experiments happening like this? I don't know. But this is, according to him, the biggest bubble chamber that ever existed. So probably not. No, I think probably not. So I have to thank Baranov. In fact, Dmitry Baranov was the person comparing or moderating when I gave my presentation in Sochi in 2018. I have immense respect for him. But my level of respect has just gone totally through the roof now. This guy knows some stuff. And we are at a stage right now where all over the world, people that worked during this Cold War period are starting to die. And the knowledge that they have is just mind-boggling. Not just the knowledge of what the results were, and what they meant, but the knowledge of how to do all of this is not subtle. This is just not subtle. This is unbelievable engineering, just unbelievable engineering. Okay. All right. Any other questions on the Baranov? Yes, neutrinos are real. Get over it. Sorry you hadn't had the chance to do the experiments, but trust me, they're real. And yeah, not subtle. Yeah. I think just to clarify, you know, there are a bunch of ways that the neutrinos are being formed. So you've got your mesons over here, and you're getting some mu and pi, and then you get your neutrinos, or you get your pions go to your electron positrons and corresponding neutrinos or antineutrinos. So this is where your neutrinos are coming from. But just to clarify here, we are not talking about things that are not neutrinos, okay? And when I publish again with a slightly better translation, if I can get the funds together for that, 70 gigaelectron volt accelerator winds these protons up into a fury. They come out in bunches every 7 seconds, 5 times 10 to the 12 protons, okay? So every 7 seconds, and he said that every 30th pulse from the accelerator, they would get one neutrino detection event. So they needed to wait for 350 seconds to get one neutrino detection event, typically. Okay, so they fire into this aluminium, which is length 600 millimeters, so 60 centimeters, and 10 millimeters, that's 1 centimeter diameter. So all these high energy protons would go into this, which is your impact target, and out of that you get a whole bunch of subatomic particles, and they would come through here and they would decay in this 164 meter, 1.5 meter vacuum tunnel. And the vacuum tunnel would, without it interacting with anything else and creating other particles, because it's a vacuum, and again, I imagine it's an extremely high vacuum, and this is after it's been through a magnetic focusing system, right? They would decay, and they would decay with the pi and mu mesons, and so you would only get neutrinos and bosons coming out, okay? And as far as I can guess, the iron, the 59 meters of iron, the 59 meters of iron here is to get rid of the bosons and any residual magnetic components, and only what you would get through here, going through this spark chamber here, the only thing that you would get out the other end would be neutrinos, okay? The thing that is given the name neutrinos is the thing that they detected here, and they all agree that this has to be neutrinos because nothing else can get through here, okay? And so that is what interacted in this gargantuan device in this chamber behind this 14 centimeters of optical glass to produce events like this. And the event specifically occurred at this point. This is the neutrino interaction, okay? And I'm going to ask him if he can send me the original data here and try and get this on Wikipedia. It needs to be on Wikipedia, because there really are people out there that think that neutrinos are not a thing. And so a muon was born in this neutrino interaction here, and it came over here and did a nuclear reaction over here. How much film did this thing use from Earth to the moon? I don't know. Skoggy Owen said, Bob, so when neutrinos get dislodged out of ordinary matter, now we're causing LENR reactions and transmutations, potentially beta decay. Yes, that's it essentially. But Parkhomov is saying that when you get any condensed matter, and that is solid, liquid, gas or plasma, because plasma is still a condensed matter, when you get those interacting at over 1,000 degrees, they literally synthesize neutrinos, ultra low energy neutrinos, and they are able to propagate. So this isn't breaking them out of matter in this sense. They're functionally the same, but they are much longer wavelengths, so that they can interact with a lot of matter at the same time, so massively increasing the interaction cross-section. Okay, so yep, this has been probably one of the biggest highlights of the year so far for me. Now I'm just going to go and dig up the slides of Anatoly Klimov for a quick overview here, and we will go here. Okay. All right. De Broglie, D-E space B-R-O-G-L-I-E, De Broglie. De Broglie. It's the wave description of the matter, the wavelength. Okay, so it's purportedly an overview of LENR research, and he's basically saying that the West are trying to produce high energy substances for explosives, for propellant technologies for modern aircraft, torpedoes, and missiles, essentially. And he cites this, it's nano aluminium particles in water, frozen, and it becomes a propellant, which does more interesting things than just being burning. Okay. He says that LENR looks like it, with nanoclusters, can produce up to 1 to 10 kilo electron volts per hydrogen atom. And if you take 2 hydrogen atoms and join them together, you get like less than 5 electron volts. It's the highest energy you can get out of any chemical reaction. So obviously, when you're looking at 1,000 kilo electron volts, you're talking about 5 very large times the amount of energy per atom. Okay, and so ultimately this cannot be associated with any known chemical reactions or explained with their help. Okay, and he's saying that if you just had nanoclusters of fuel weighing about 1 kilogram, this should allow a generator to function autonomously for a whole month. Okay, with just 1 kilogram of fuel. Ordinary water vapor or cheap hydrocarbons ultimately could be the fuel. He lists Brillouin. Theirs is a thin nickel deposit onto a tube, and they use what they call Brillouin waves, which are caused by pulses and shocks in the hydrated nickel. And they propose that this goes through proton chain reaction to produce helium, and that is their energy production there. Brilliant Light Power do not claim it is a LENR process, but they do everything necessarily to produce plasmoids, and but they don't believe it's that. They apparently are working on producing direct electrical energy from X-ray, and I think soft UVs as well. So soft X-ray and UV light directly. And so this is Randall Mills and the experiment that they ran. Clean Planet, who will be one of the hosts of this year's ICCF 26, And I am sad to say that they didn't accept either of my papers for a oral presentation. They gave me poster presentations. I'm in good company because many other people were only given poster presentations, but they complained first, so they were upgraded. It is a bit like that in Japan because the Japanese have so much research and they don't tend to field a lot of researchers in the European or American conferences. So they want to do a lot of their own people when they're in Japan. So it's not surprising. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull one of the papers and I'm going to present that in Tesla Tech in Albuquerque in August. And I will present just one of the papers as a poster at ICCF 26. So that's an update for you there. But that is, you know, they have this all of Japan event going on. And this is one of their fuel stacks here in the Clean Planet reactors. And this is what I'm saying. These are all the universities involved. These are the companies that are involved, and they're supported by the government. This is the former Clean HME, which had a budget of about €1 million per awardee. Companies over here on the right. And to a degree, the support for the European Union came from the MFMP's replication of Chelani. That was part of what convinced them to support LENR in Europe. And because they got support, then ARPA-E from the Department of Energy then started supporting LENR research in the US. And I wrote a document that was presented to Congress through a third party that helped this funding come through. So our little old project ended up by helping this to happen and then helping this to happen. And so, you know, you guys that have supported this work are making this happen. You are able to have a role in bringing this technology to the fore. I talk about Energy Net IQ, which was the people that were originally working with the people that became Engate. They were working with representatives of Anatoly Klimov before things became difficult. And so they went their own way, and they are developing technology which they say is, you know, 3 to 4 kilowatts in and 15 to 18 kilowatts out. Typical COP of 3.5 up to 13. 13 is around a little bit below the, I think it was 14 or something, but around the ballpark of the Kladoff cavitation generator. It may even be cavitation that's going on in here. It certainly looks like there's a lot of bubbles going on in there. Again, they get this around when you're doing these discharges in water. What you do is you raise the temperature of the water to around 70 degrees, just like Benjamin Huang does. And at 70 degrees, it doesn't take a lot to cause multi-phase in the water when you do pulse discharges. Mizuno did this as well, and it flashes to steam, and it's that whole process of flashing and then collapsing back where you get all this cavitation going on. And so it may actually be as a result of a lot of cavitation and resulting processes. Anyway, so they have some tables here with a COP of 7 here, and this one here with a COP of 13. Okay, and so they've got their history back in 2020. They were down here, and then they got a bit better and a bit better, and then up here they had an average COP of 7 on the 1st of February 2023 for an 80-minute run. But again, these are fairly short runs. 80 minutes is not a reactor you can run day in, day out, and that is the challenge that these reactors will have. They tend to have a problem running for a long period of time because of electrode wear. So Engate effectively are a spin-off of Klimov's work also. They have a history spanning back to here, and I think they even talk about some of the similar work down here. And this energy cell, now this is where Klimov got something wrong. He was referring to direct electricity generation, and that wasn't from the plasma vortex reactor, that was from, as far as I understand it, the George Eagley direct electricity generator device, and in that which partly I helped that move forward. Now the problem with that device is that it uses aluminium, and aluminium ends up by producing oxygen, typically in carbon, and the electrodes stop working after a period of time as effectively. So whilst it might work for a period of time to produce over unity electricity, it fails exactly for the same reason as the Griffin-Brock desmatron tube does. And Griffin-Brock talks about the fact that he doesn't see the vacuum change in the chamber, but he gets this oxygen coming from somewhere, and it stops the electrodes from working. Well, I believe that that is happening inside the changed space-time of the magnetohydrodynamic bubble, inside the non-radiating boundary. The oxygen is produced in one side, as we see in the ultra experiment. It shifts over in the wormhole and is deposited, and it's deposited both where it directly lands in terms of the wormhole, but as we know from Matsumoto and from the cardioid infarction sample of Henk Urian, and also from the ultra experiments, the oxygen will start to come out, and then it will fill, in my view, that vacuum bubble, that different space-time, and so it will oxidize the electrode in the areas which are the most active areas, and so it will stop it from working. So I think the same process will be going on in the energy cell of Engate. I hope to be able to help them with that, but it's almost an insurmountable problem for that approach to producing energy. So it doesn't matter whether you're working with the plasma vortex reactor or the energy cell, there's going to be these material science challenges where, you know, the plasmoids like to do what plasmoids like to do, which is they like to chew up matter, and that's just the reality. Okay, so he got, in my view, he got that wrong, although I would like to speak to the people at Engate and clarify that, and that might happen in the coming weeks. I will keep you abreast of that. Here is the Joint Institute for High Temperature, Russian Academy of Sciences. I actually believe I went into this building in 2015. I might be wrong, but I think it was this building. I think I was in the lab over here when I actually saw this experiment with Sergei Godin and some other people there, but also they showed me this tube, which was a Parkhomov reactor that they'd done an experiment on, and they hooked it up to some high pressure hydrogen, and they were able to light it. Oh, thank you, Skoggy. That's really nice of you for that €50 donation. Really, really, thank you very much. That really helps. Maybe I'll find a bit of time and use some of that money to do a better translation. Anyway, it deserves it. Thank you. And so they showed me this tube which had some holes. I don't know what it was, but they said, do you know what this is? And they showed me this tube which they put the hydrogen on one end, and they took a lighter and they put a lighter, and it had loads of jets coming out of it. Of course, back then in 2015, in February 2015, I didn't know anything about plasmoids or Ken Shoulder's work, but later I was to learn that these exotic vacuum objects, they can bore straight through ceramic and leave these channels, and I would understand that to be the case, where the reactor was compromised and holes were bored through it by the exotic vacuum objects leaving. And so therefore I think it's the same process, at least in part. So okay, so he showed, kind of his reactors and their reactors and different variations on the theme. And then he went on to how he talked about doing hydrocarbons and LENR. This is in a webinar in 2022. You can go and see that here, up here, at this location here, where he talked about that, making nanoclusters out of carbon. And he shows his history. Oh, sorry, I'm not showing you, am I? Sorry. Russian Academy of Sciences, various reactors, theirs and others. There's and others, and he's talking about the hydrocarbons and LENR here in 2022. This is the link that you need to go and see that. He actually talks about, these are the relevant publications from his point of view. This is 1994, ball lightning in the laboratory. Russian Academy of Sciences, 2006, study of plasma-assisted combustion of hydrocarbon fuel in high-speed airflow. Ken Pratt has just asked about the mirrors focusing relic neutrinos. He said smooth metal effectively, and that's it. That is what Parkhomov used. It was a pan lid, in fact. It literally was a pan lid. I saw it myself in the top of his high apartment in Moscow, in East Moscow. And at this point here, he would have the, say, cobalt 60 little cube, and then he would have a Geiger-Müller tube strapped onto the back end of that with some screening to remove the other energies other than Emax, because it's only Emax you get out from inverse beta decay. Okay, so yeah, but this is the one he was referring to here. Could we use hydrocarbon fuel correctly? Hydrocarbon metal nanoclusters, plasma in LENR experiment. So this time he was talking about hydrocarbon, but he's now just really since 2022, he realizes you can just use carbon nanoclusters and do a lot of magic. And they've done a lot of experiments here. In this one, they've got airflow coming into there at Mach 1.5. So they're looking at sort of scramjets. This is plasma accelerated combustion or something like that. These are the parameters here. In this case, they have high frequency discharges in the airflow, and so that would be producing plasmoids as well. So this is plasmoid tech, plasma toroids, and it does weird things with flame propagations in both directions. This is where the magic occurs. So what you've got here is two electrodes, and these are high frequency, high voltage. There's a Tesla coil over here, and so you've got the discharge here, you've got the discharge in between here, and you've got the flame propagation going backwards and forwards. Okay, absolutely amazing. Vortex airflow coming in, very different kind of combustion profiles going on in these systems. Okay, and in this case, and like I say, this is 11:52, the 3rd of what's that, April 2001. So unless the video, and it does look like a VHS cassette here, but they have got, this system here is producing a laser effect, and they're saying it's from C2 radical creation, and that's lasing there. So absolutely incredible. Again here, very, very different process going on. High frequency discharge. So the main results were LENR reactors and heterogeneous mixture can be used as fuel. Cheap carbon nanoclusters plus hydrogen ions obtained by reforming propane. And this, I think, is the gas that was used by Amaza in his experiments that we shared in 2019. Typical COP values, 2 to 4. You can also do detonation of this, and it exceeds the typical values of energy release from TNT by 4 to 10 times. transmutation of chemical elements was detected and studied in such a reactor using optical spectroscopy and EDS spectroscopy. So they are claiming nuclear transmutation. Then they show another couple of their experiments here. They did talk about this, but this would be to produce cheap hydrogen. Here's another reactor that looks very much like the character that I made a long time ago. And here is his closing slide. And the closing slide is basically, if we don't get our act together, the full basis for the Russian economy will be collapsed and we'll be left standing. And it's saying, this is a key phrase here. At the same time, hydrocarbons with the help of plasmoid technologies will be used in the world with energy efficiency 10 to 100 times higher than with their traditional combustion technology. So let's say you only get 30% of the energy out of your current hydrocarbon. If you've tripled that, let's say it was 33, you tripled that, that would be 3 times, and that would be 100% of the chemical energy used. You would have to, even just to go to 10 times, you're going to more than triple that efficiency again. So you have to have non-chemical energies being released. And if you go into 100 times, you know, you've got to be considering nuclear. And since we detect nuclear, then probably there is nuclear. Therefore, the need and use of hydrocarbons in the future should be significantly reduced. And then moreover, the use of ordinary water as fuel in newly created power plants based on hydrogen metal energy and LENR will change the need to use hydrocarbons as fuel worldwide. So that was Anatoly Klimov's summary of what he said. Yeah, there we go. So I'd like to thank Alexander Parkhomov for getting to the age of 80. And there'll be some more presentations to come out of what happened on Wednesday when I can get some time and some credits to do the translations for you. I will get these published individually and slightly improve them onto YouTube so you can watch them again. I will also produce the presentations there as PDFs so that you can look through those. I will also include the original Russians presentation slides just in case there's any errors. I think that's a prudent thing to do. But for me, the most beautiful thing of this week, other than congratulating Parkhomov for his work and his great contribution, thank you very much, Contraption, for that $30. Really, really very appreciated. Is this incredible experiment that Dmitry Baranov was witness to 45 years ago here at this facility here, and incredible, where he observed neutrinos. They're neutrinos because only neutrinos can get through to the bubble chamber, and they look like this. And we have a cold fusion star or a fusion star down here, a nuclear reaction going on here. And in the case of Matsumoto, that was happening outside of the reactor. So something was created in the reactor, which is not what I would consider a 70 gigaelectron volt proton accelerator with a conversion target. No, it was just a cold fusion reactor, and something was created that ended up by producing a cold fusion star. And so neutrinos are real, and because they have a range of energies, therefore there must be low energy neutrinos. Okay, if there's any questions of that, I will take them now. And if not, I'll go to bed. Yes, Goggy Hoggins, rearranging nuclei, yes. Well, it's been a small quorum today, but I hope you've been rewarded for your visiting me this evening. I think these two presentations are huge. Ah, Ken, you got something you want to ask? Doesn't smooth glass reflect neutrinos? No, he found metal. He used metal. Okay, Melifury. Okay. So. That's okay, Ken. La-di-da-di-da. Oh, thank you very much. Above all things, really appreciated for that $10 there. Actually, thank you everyone that made donations today. It's really, it warms my heart. Thank you to Skoggy Hoggins double times. Thank you to Contraption, and thank you to Above All Things. It really makes a difference. So, this was a ode to one Alexander Parkhomov for his great gift to humanity that he discussed in Space Earth Human. And someday I will actually have a look, when I get the available equipment, at these parts of his first major heat producing reactor, which we have here. We only actually ever got to look at this material here, this metal part of the fuel, but we also have parts of the reactor here. So there's going to be other things that will come back from the past to show us what he did, and I hope we can do that soon. So I want to say thank you to my good friend Alexander Parkhomov, and congratulations on reaching the great years of 80. And I look forward to working with you more in the next 10 years. And thank you to all that came to watch these presentations, these translations of presentations such that there were. My name is Bob Greener. I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project, and I'd like to say good night, buenas noches, dobro noc.